Thanks for watching Safari Express with me, Shiko Kaitani. My question to you this week is, have you already started planning for your holiday? Thanks to our specialists on this particular episode, we get some tips on how to stay safe on safari.
A lot of people don't realize it, but travel medicine is an entire branch of medicine. I mean, it's something that's getting you ready for any of your journeys, whether it's something local or whether it's something international. As we're moving into December, and now that we don't have all these COVID restrictions, we're seeing a lot of movement. Anything that's going to keep you confined in a mode of transport for more than 4 hours qualifies as long distance travel. So whether that's by car, whether that's by plane, whether that's by train, that still qualifies as a long distance travel. So the first thing is, where are you going to? Have you researched the place that you're going to? We don't tend to take local travel as serious as we would about international travel. But especially if you're going to be the one who's driving the car, then before you do that, you need to have had at least 4 to 6 hours rest period before you decide to be, in charge of a vehicle taking someone from Nairobi to Kisumu or Nairobi to Mombasa. Usually if you're a passenger, I think it's more about being ready for the journey. Clearly, at a certain age, your body is not able to do things like work the whole day, maybe be out the whole night and then jump into a car and wake up in Mombasa the next day. So at least an adequate amount of sleep, 4 to 6 hours before you travel, is always recommended. Generally, once a year you should be having a checkup, whether you're traveling or not. The time I would say it's more important to have a checkup is if you're going to be traveling out of your home station for an extended period of time. So even if you live in Nairobi and you're going to be moving to Kisumu or Mombasa and you're going to be there for 3 months, 6 months, then it's a good idea to have a checkup before you go. If you're traveling abroad, it's extremely important to have a checkup before you travel, especially if you're going to end up using planes as a mode of transport, because we need to be able to know, are you the kind of person who can tolerate that change in altitude, that change in oxygen? If you have a chronic illness, you should always have a checkup before you leave. Make sure that you have your medications, your supplies before you're traveling. If you're diabetic, hypertensive, making sure that you're traveling with a stock. And of course, you usually need a prescription when you're traveling through, especially international airports, so that people know that these medications are for you and they're for a clinical use. If you're traveling, you need to have some kind of a first aid kit with you, especially if you're traveling by road. If you're going to be staying in a hotel or a house, you need to have a first aid kit. So if you get these small cuts, bruises, little things, at least you have something to do that emergency intervention at that time. You should always have these oral rehydration salts. Again, just that if you land somewhere and you end up having a bit of an upset stomach, you have something to make sure that you stay hydrated. It's not a bad idea to have a probiotic. Again, this helps with that runny tummy. You need to have some kind of painkiller or analgesia. It doesn't have to be very high grade or very strong, but simple things like a paracetamol is something that ideally you should be traveling with. We'd recommend you having some kind of an antihistamine with you, because again, allergies is something that can happen when you change your environment. So you need to have some kind of an antihistamine as well with you. So the thing we talked about was traveler's diarrhea. Now, traveler's diarrhea, most places will give you a little bit of a traveler's diarrhea kit, and you'll have the oral rehydration salts, maybe some probiotic, and there's usually a medication that we give called loperamide that can help stop the diarrhea. But again, this is used in that short-term diarrhea that is not an infection. So a little kit that just has the basic things like this is usually something essential to travel with. Unless you have a chronic illness, then you have to have your regular pack of medications that you're going with. When you're traveling, like during the travel or to the place that you're getting to, when it comes to food, you either need to be able to boil it, cook it, or peel it, or forget it. So, so traveler's diarrhea tends to be self-limiting. A lot of times, wherever you're going, maybe the water source is contaminated, maybe the food has stayed out too long. It tends to be self-limiting, meaning it should resolve on its own. And the only thing you need to be concerned about is making sure that you're hydrated. So you need to have a clean water source. And it's good to get something called oral rehydration salts, because when you're having this runny tummy, what you're losing is not just water, but you're losing a lot of electrolytes, which are very important, and that's why you end up feeling really weak and tired. So the number one thing is always traveler's diarrhea. The second thing that people tend to get are respiratory tract infections, because you're moving from your little bubble and going to meet up with multiple family members, or even in transit in different places, you're coming into contact with quite a few people. So again, you're more likely to pick up a respiratory tract infection. Again, a lot of them are viral and tend to be self-limiting. So treating the symptoms 1 to 2 days, you should be improving. Anything that's going on for more than 48 to 72 hours, then you do need to seek medical advice wherever you are.
As I say kwaheri and see you on the next episode, we want to hear all about your travels.